Welcome back to Nature Labs, where we slowly go crazy waiting for the BC election results, which very clearly are not coming anytime soon. And I'm sure literally no one is watching these videos right now because as much as you might like social studies, you probably don't care that much to stay up this late to find out who won an election in BC. Fair enough. But maybe on Monday, you're gonna want to know what happened and dig a little bit deeper on the election. You're gonna see this video, and you're also gonna be really grateful that your teacher stayed up this late to tell you what's going on. So here we are. And I think what's really instructive about the BC election right now is the importance of the science of politics. So much in our society, whether it's media, whether it's science itself, and of course politics, comes down to data. How good is your data? How can you collect your data? And of course, how can you implement your data? And what you're seeing right now in these very close races is how good the parties were or weren't at IDing voters prior to the election, crafting messages, telling stories, narratives that would inspire these voters, and then finding ways to get them to the ballot box. In some of these very close races, how it will ultimately turn out will probably be indicative of how good that data collecting effort really was. And what I can see right now in looking through the data myself is that I think this was very clearly, as many people have said, a change election. People are frustrated, people are upset, people want change, they want something different, anything different, no matter what form it comes in. That's really benefited the BC Conservatives. And I think the momentum that you're seeing that they're carrying into this election, the vote is probably about what a lot of the polls were saying in advance, about 45 to 43 favoring the NDP over the Conservatives. But the riding breakdown is probably closer than the polls suggested. And that just comes down to the margin of error. And I think that if the NDP is able to eke out a victory with the power of incumbency, with the power of a more sophisticated get out the vote machine, more volunteers, a longer track record, frankly, because the BC Conservatives are new and had that kind of shotgun wedding with the BC United Party fairly recently, where they merged their resources. So they were a little bit more kind of rough in terms of getting that data together in the short time frame they had. I think really shows that if the Conservatives pulled this out, they did it because they had the momentum. And if they don't pull it out, it probably actually says that they were, this race is maybe not quite as tight as we actually maybe thought. In other words, that if the Conservatives had a bit more time, a bit better data, they may have done a bit better than what the results will actually show. That's at least what the data is showing me right now. Things can change, but I think the Conservatives, even if they fall short in this election, probably in reality did a little bit better than they thought, and probably could have done a little bit better than they're showing, which means even if they don't win, they've kind of won, if that makes some sense. So what does that mean on a national level? If BC was a bellwether for the way our politics is going in the country, it certainly seems there is a conservative wave. Certainly that conservative wave seems to be coming from your demographic, from younger people, ages 18 to 35. That certainly seems to be kind of cresting for the Conservatives, and the more data they get, the more sophisticated their apparatus is in terms of getting those votes, translating support to ballots. They're going to have more success provincially and federally. So that's sort of what the data is saying in this moment. I do want to make one more comment because it keeps coming up, including by John Rustad in his speech this evening to his party supporters. It may have been 100 years since Conservatives formed government in British Columbia, but there have been Conservative premiers in BC, if not in party name, then certainly in ideology. W.A.C. Bennett ruled the province of British Columbia for many, many terms with majority governments, and I promise you, as a SOCRED, he was a Conservative. I also promise you Gordon Campbell had a coalition between federal Liberals and federal Conservatives, but they were a free market and in many ways a small c Conservative government, as he once told me. So I also assure you that Gordon Campbell, even though he was a BC Liberal, his multiple majority governments in BC were Conservative leadership in the province of BC. So while many ridings are going Conservative tonight, and this is great news for the BC Conservative Party, conservative politics in BC, this isn't really that new. So just something to keep in mind. Regardless of where you stand, the BC Conservatives have done well, but it's not really that new to BC. It's just a different version of an old story.